Yeah. Did you yawn again? Good afternoon and welcome to Living Waters, Falling Deeper in Love with God's Word. I am one of your tired hosts, Lauren Cruz.
And I'm Stephanie Pavlantos. This is going to be shown at 5 o'clock on Friday evening, but it is 3:30 in the afternoon and we're both tired. So
it's interrupting our nap time. We were joking that we're both going to start the show with books over our faces, hiding our yawns, because we've probably yawned, I don't know, six, 7 times.
I can't even say the word. You can't even say the word.
Yeah, we're just doing it. That 6-7 thing is very trendy in high school now. It's very goofy. I don't know.
How funny. Yeah, I was trying to get it all out before she hit record.
That's right. That's right. But I'm tired too, and I'm probably going to continue yawning. So thank you. This is pre-recorded. Thank you for your patience. We have had a very busy November and something going on almost every Friday. And of course, next Friday is Black Friday. We plan to go live, but we will know more as our week progresses, because
we have family coming in.
Right. So exactly. And
see what happens.
Yeah. And if they plan to stay or if they're going to leave or what. So we anticipate to be live on Friday, but we may very well record it, and it's okay. We have been given permission. Mark has been awesome. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mark, for being just so very patient with us this month. It's been very helpful. Yeah.
And I'm cold, and she's in a t-shirt, and
I am. It's 85.
I got a little heater that I just heat this room with, because this room for some reason is cold, and so I have to get a little heater, and it's just enough to take off, warm it up. So
we had fake fall, and then we had fake winter. We already had our fake winter.
Yeah.
It's like 3 days it's cold, but we haven't turned our heat on. We just opened the windows. That's all that means.
Oh, really? How funny.
Yeah, but it's 85 today. Our air is on. The air conditioning is on. It is hot. And welcome to Florida.
Yeah, how funny though. We do this every year. I'll be dressed for winter and she's dressed for summer every time.
It's just, I honestly, I love the cold weather, and I'd take that in a minute. I love it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we should kind of be a little more official, right?
So we started.
We are continuing, and we are working our way so slowly. We might finish by next year. I don't know.
We're only in 4, and it seems like every chapter takes at least 2 weeks because there's so much in it.
This is a really good commentary. I recommend this. I know it's hard to find, but it is a Hebraic perspective commentary on the book of Romans, and it's good. I'm like, I have a lot.
There's a lot of good details in here, and things that people argue about, he explains those kind of passages. So it's good. I like it.
I do too. So we paused last week because we started to get into a section, the last half, we're all the way up to Romans 4. Romans 4 verses
11,
12, 13, 15, kind of in that area. And he is starting to compare deeds and trust. And basically he's comparing the book of James, because James was written a little before Romans. And when you read through Romans, you have the big debate. Is he agreeing with James, or is he disagreeing with James? And so there's some great stuff in here about that. I'm not going to look at you and make me yawn.
So I'll get over it as soon as we start reading this stuff. I'll get over it.
So the thing to remember, though, is the audience, and we will mention this again, Paul had a very different audience than James did. Yeah. Paul was writing to a congregation, an organization, an assembly in Rome. They're Christian.
And one particular assembly.
Yeah, one particular assembly, not just a blanket statement to the Romans.
Yeah.
They're pagan converts and they're Jewish converts, and they're trying to figure out, how we can do that. Paul has specifically been dealing with the Jewish ideas that we are righteous because we're Jewish, and we are righteous because we follow Torah. And Paul has said, no, we all deserve the wrath of God, except because of Yeshua's death on the cross, and because of the trust we have in Yeshua's faith, we can be righteous.
Yeah, and his faithfulness is what gets us through when we are less than faithful.
Right.
But
I guess we should tell them too who James is writing to, though. Compare that.
Yeah, and I'll read some of that. But I was thinking that number one, what you said, we have to remember that he's not just talking to Gentiles. This is written to Jews as well, because numerous times he will say something about his brothers or we Jews.
We Jews.
Yeah. Pay attention to those things. And then there was one more thing. Oh, and in this, he's also talking about Abraham. And that's what opens up about James. That's what kind of segues into James, because he's talking about Abraham's righteousness. And the other thing I just wanted to remind everybody of, he talks about the gospel and the law. It's not the gospel or the law. It's the gospel and the law. They were meant to go together. And where the gospel points to Jesus as our salvation, and the Torah points to Jesus as our sanctification. You know, that's how we are sanctified. It's through our obedience. So anyway, that's kind of just some points that he has made throughout the chapter, throughout the book.
All right. So, you want to go ahead and jump in? Anything on page 113?
Yeah. So the second
little bit of an introduction.
Yeah. So it says, and I'll just read bits and parts of it. In the New Testament book named after him, James focuses his writings as much on the works of a believer as he did on trust in Messiah. So it's focused on works of the believer and the trust of Messiah. So he brings up Martin Luther. Yeah, wrong one. Martin Luther noticed this and was disapproving of what James had to say, that he basically wanted the book of James removed from the Bible. And because he found no place in the gospel of Christ for the role of deeds. And that's kind of where that kind of got really on a roll. Right. I think from that time on, and people who really, really follow Martin Luther kind of follow that belief as well. Right. That nothing is about deeds. Well, that's really not true at all, because we can go to Revelation. It talks about our righteous deeds being equal to the white, the white robes we're wearing. So he goes on to say, therefore, when he saw the book of James as contradictory to Paul's writings, and also contradictory to his doctrine of faith and faith alone as a means to attain salvation. So it says that part of his stance stemmed from the fact that he was basically anti-Semitic, and thus the book of James was a bit too Jewish for his liking.
Right. So. Yeah, I don't know if people realize that Luther was very anti-Semitic. I mean, that when I first discovered that, I was surprised. I had no idea. When I first learned that, I was like, wow, that's interesting. And don't forget, it would make sense too. His whole stance was against the deeds of the Catholic Church, how you have to do penance, you have to do a journey, you have to go through the priest, you have to, there's lots of deeds in the Catholic faith and in the practicing of the Catholic faith, and he was adamantly against it. So
and those were wrong.
Right, yeah. But he's swayed very far, right? The pendulum always goes too far one way or the other. He then began to see the Jewish righteousness or Jewish obedience to Torah as also deeds, and that he didn't agree with that as well. So there's a lot. So we wanted to kind of highlight James and Romans, and like the author is here doing in this book that is in this commentary, because I think he makes a good argument for that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We don't throw James out just because he sounds like he's contradicting Paul. It's understanding that neither one is contradicting the other. They're just coming
I think he mentions they're expressing two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, that's how he describes it. Okay, so for James, we didn't really talk about it, but James's audience, James was the head of the church in Jerusalem. He was, when Yeshua left, his brother was left in charge, James. And so it wasn't Peter who was in charge of Jerusalem. It was James who was in charge of the assembly in Jerusalem and in charge of, monitoring how things are presented. And so if you go through and
there's
sorry,
on 115
we did James here on we did James.
Yeah, we did go through James.
We did go through
but
James.
he actually mentions on 115 at the top that Paul's addressing the Romans, and then who James is addressing, the Holy Land
Jews, right.
And we talked last week that James came out way before Romans.
Right.
So it came out in somewhere around 40, 44 AD. So, or CE, whatever. But that's important to understand that when his gospel or book of James came out, then he was talking as this like pastor over,
head of the assemblies or head of the council.
Leader over the apostles and the assembly there in Jerusalem. So
All right, so I'm going to start by sharing James 2:14 through 26. It's a pretty good chunk, but it helps us. There's a lot that's being compared back and forth, so I'm just going to give you the context of it. Just read it.
If you want to follow along, grab your Bible, James 2:14 through 26.
Yeah. What good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but has no actions to prove it? If such faith is able to save him, suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food, and someone says to him, "Shalom, keep warm and eat hearty," without giving him what he needs. What good does it do? Thus, faith by itself, unaccompanied by action, is dead. But some will say that you have faith and I have actions. Show me this faith of yours without the actions, and I will show you my faith by my actions. You believe that God is one. It's highlighted, so that indicates that that's a repeating scripture
from the Old Testament.
Right. Good for you. The demons believe it too. The thought makes them shudder with fear. But foolish fellow, do you want to be shown that such faith apart from action is barren? Wasn't Abraham, I don't know how to say that, Aninu, declared righteous because of actions when he offered up his son, Yitzhak, on the altar? You see his faith worked with his actions. By the actions, the faith was made complete, and the passage of the Tanakh was fulfilled, which says, and this is dark again because it's a quote of scripture, Abraham had faith in God, and it was credited to his account as righteousness. He was even called God's friend. You see that a person is declared righteous because of actions and not because of faith alone. Likewise, wasn't Rahab the prostitute, also declared righteous because of actions when she welcomed the messengers and sent them out by another route? Indeed, just as the body without the spirit is dead, so too faith without actions is dead.
Yeah.
So here we go.
We don't realize that the word believe and trust is actually a verb. So there has to be an action that goes with that. So he's kind of now going to kind of almost like where Paul is, what Paul says, and then we find James what he says, and so this is what Paul says in Romans 3:24. So we had already read this chapter, but he says, by God's grace, without earning it, all are granted the status of being considered righteous before him through the act redeeming us from our enslavement to sin that was accomplished by Messiah Yeshua.
Right.
And then he goes on, James 2:14 and 17. What good is it, my brothers, if someone claims to have faith but has no actions to prove it? Is such faith able to save him? Faith by itself, unaccompanied by action, is dead. So those are kind of the arguments here that kind of all it sounds like they're contradicting each other, but they're not.
Right. Okay. Well, how do we explain this one?
Yeah. So we talked about the top. So he says here at the bottom of the first paragraph up on 115, he said, let me repeat. Paul is dealing with believing diaspora Jews,
right,
and Gentiles. James is dealing almost exclusively with believing Jews in the Holy Land.
Mm-hmm.
These are very different cultures with equally different religious concerns.
Right.
So we have to get the right context, first of all. And I think many of us kind of get the wrong context of both James and of what Paul says. So context is really important. And we push that a lot.
Yeah, we do.
So, so is there any, I mean, I have a few more things on this page if you want on.
No, I have a lot more. It's the next paragraph that I really kind of noted things on. I wrote all over the margin, and yeah, I have the same thing. Just understand the context, and just on the face value, it sounds as though the two statements are at odds with one another, but in reality, there's no fundamental contraction between James and Paul. Rather, they're expressing the two sides of the same coin. So, and when we get into this next little section, I think it'll be a little more clear. So he says, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was going to read something, but do you have some like where it says, while James is speaking of deeds and actions,
right,
in terms of physical, tangible obedience to the written regulations of the law and of Moses. So again, James is speaking of deeds and actions, meaning obedience to the written law of Moses. Paul is speaking of the spirit that undergirds the law of Moses and the goal that the law strives for, and that righteousness is attained by means of God's grace.
Right. I just went ahead a little higher than that to go ahead. I'm going to read the actual what he's referencing because it made sense to me. It says, what's especially challenging, James says that Abraham was righteous, and he keeps using that word, on the account of his deed of actually putting Isaac on the altar, right? That's a deed. Put him on the altar. It's an action. Okay. Well, Paul says that Abraham was righteous because of his trust. And in my opinion, we're dealing with semantics, the same thing. And I wrote down, I said, he put Isaac on the altar because he actually trusted God, right? And we kind of talked about this before we came on. Abraham wouldn't have done the deed if he didn't trust God in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's just that the deed is the action of trust. And that's kind of the point we're making, that obedience is the action of trust and obedience to Torah. I can't say I'm Torah pursuant if I'm not doing something that shows that I'm actually doing it. So
I think, obviously we're not going out and sacrificing, because those are questions that people will say, okay, so when's the last time you sacrificed? Or and obviously no. If you read Hebrews, it tells you sacrifices, that we no longer sacrifice, because even by continuing to sin, that means we're crucifying Jesus all over again. And he talks about the sacrifices, and the Levitical priesthood is obsolete. So he even talks about that's what's obsolete. He's comparing to the Levitical priesthood with the Melchizedek priesthood. Right. And one is going away and the other is not. And so anyway, don't be sarcastic about things like that, because there are other scriptures that tell us that certain things are done with, but it's not the law, the instructions on how to serve God and serve others, how to treat God and how to treat your fellow man. Those are instructions that are very clear in his word, in the Torah. Yeah. So, but I thought of something, because way back when my kids were little, I felt the call of God to teach. And it was new to me. I loved to teach even then. I still love to teach then. I had started getting that love of it, but I never considered myself a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, he calls me, and I knew it was a definite call in my life. I even went to my pastor at that time and said, this is what happened, and this is what I felt like I heard. And he's like, yep, I agree with you. That's a call in your life that the Lord is telling you you're going to do. So, but a few years later, they wanted me to teach the teens. Okay. So, but I had already started teaching like women's ministries and Sunday school classes for adults. And I remember just saying, Lord, I do not want to teach the teens. I mean, no offense, but that's not my forte.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't want to teach teenagers. And so I just said, I'll teach this class if this is what you want me to.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of like I was laying my Isaac down in a bit. I was like, if you don't want me to teach the women anymore or the Sunday school classes anymore, then fine, I'll teach the teens. And as soon as I surrendered that, the Lord said to me, no, that's not what I called you to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the group I called you to teach.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to see if you would be obedient, And so he does test us occasionally. And that was just a really small test. I mean, there are much bigger tests that he gives us, but that came to my mind while we were reading this portion, because I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be transferred and start teaching teenagers. But yeah. But anyway,
I totally understand it. And we've in our Bible study group, they were talking about spiritual gifts and stuff and the calling, because we're going through Ephesians. And so we talked a little bit about it, and I'm like, I know I've been called to teach, and I said, but with that, I mean, I might teach high school kids all day long, but I don't have, and I would love to teach them the Bible, but I want to teach people that are passionate about learning the Bible. And that's why I choose to teach women or adults, because they ask legitimate questions and they're hungry and they want it. And I think teenagers do too, but they don't have the discipline to read the Bible and to have a conversation about it.
Right.
So I'd love to teach them. If I had a group of kids that are like, we are hungry and please feed us, I'd be all over that. But it's not. No.
Yeah, exactly. And it is a shame. We have to pray for our teenagers too.
Yes, we do.
To get on fire for the Lord.
Yes, we do. And our young adult children.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Especially our, what is it? Gen Z and
millennial and Gen Z. Yeah, for sure.
So,
okay. The one thing at this section I had written out in the margin, trust and obey. And because of the song, we, once upon a time, I mean, I grew up in the Southern Baptist Church, and I remember singing that, and that was a thing. And I'm like, why would they have us sing that and then argue with you about it? That's a contradiction. And I think that whoever wrote that hymn kind of understood a little bit that, and all over the New Testament. Well, all over the New Testament, it talks about the fruit that you're going to do, and the fruit. You don't have fruit unless you don't have deeds. So
the fruit it's the fruit of our faith that shows itself in our patience, our kindness, our love, and doing good things for others. And, So he ends this with what we kind of ended last week's with. In reality, Paul says that while God's righteous is us, according to our trust, the law remains alive and well, and that it goes without saying that properly doing the provisions of the law or deeds remains paramount in the life of a believer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, he had said just a little earlier, it says, the debate became so polarizing that Jews determined that righteousness was attained solely from obedience to the law, while Gentile Christians determined righteousness was attained solely from trusting. And this is where he said it's the classic, both sides are throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, and it's still going on today.
Yeah, still a fight today.
Yeah. It's just like the fight between Ishmael and Isaac, right? I mean, it's still playing out on a world setting. So, It's funny how these things, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, they do.
So,
all right.
Okay.
He does do another reference back to Romans 2:5-6, but I think we can move on a little bit.
Yeah, Romans. I have highlighted Romans 4, and 5.
Okay.
Even though I know we've passed that, because I think what he does is he kind of skips it and comes back to it.
Right.
He kind of just talked about trusting and all of that there. But I can read that and then you can comment on it. He's got a whole bunch of stuff written about it. Romans 4, and 5. Now the account of someone who is working is credited not on the ground of grace, but on the ground of what is owed him. However, in the case of one who is not working, but rather is trusting in him who makes ungodly people righteous, his trust is credited to him as righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
So he's talking about you and I, everyone who follows.
His comment, Paul makes it abundantly clear that God accepts those who sin, Jews and Gentiles, without requiring them to first prove their trust. Okay. In him, either through deeds or acts of kindness, or through doing the commandments of the law. It's not through trust plus deeds that one is initially righteous, saved by God. However, it certainly is that once one puts their trust in God and God righteouses them, saves them, then despite his or her deeds, their expected result is to express trust. Trust. I think that's interesting.
By means,
trust by means of your deeds.
Right. That's a good express that trust. How do you express your trust?
Right.
How do any of us express our trust? By just saying, yeah, I trust you. Yeah, I trust you. Yeah, I trust you.
Yeah.
But he's like, show me you trust me. I mean, think about, if you're involved in a relationship of any kind, especially with the opposite sex, it's like, yeah, sure, I trust you. But you need to prove that I can trust you, in some ways, in human relationships, not that God does. But he does show it in everything that he does. He shows that we can trust him. But it's still, you have to prove something. You have to do something to show that they can trust you.
Right.
Your spouse can trust you. And that you can trust your kids. They have to prove to you.
I think that's even better. Yeah. Like, how do I know I can trust you?
By being consistent, coming home when you're supposed to, whatever, putting gas in the car when you use it all up, those kinds of things. It's like, I'll let you keep going out if you show that I can trust you. If you're trustworthy with the car, you're trustworthy with your time.
Exactly.
So
even love, even if you say I love you, there's actions behind that. I think that's something that we don't really wrap our brain around. In Hebrew, nouns are based on verbs. Like every root word is basically a verb.
Exactly.
If you want to talk about it that way. It is. So it's not. It's
so
not
love is,
we call it an abstract noun because it's nothing we can touch. It's abstract. It's abstract. Love and feelings are abstract nouns, but in Hebrew, they're verbs.
Well, and that's why Jesus says, no greater love does someone have for their friend than, what's the verse? No greater love than for a man to lay his life down for his friend. That's proving I love you. That's proving like I'm willing to give my life for you to live.
Right.
So if that's not a deed, I don't know what is. So
a big deed.
Yeah. I like where he says here, works and deeds are defined by the spirit of the law. First trust, then deeds. This order can never be reversed. First trust, then deeds.
Yeah.
Nor can one have only trust or only deeds as a believer. And in this, sorry,
I hit the button. That was me. I hit a button.
I did something.
That's me.
This order can never be reversed, nor can one have only trust or deed. Oh, I'm sorry. And in James are in full agreement. James and Paul are in full agreement with that. So Yeah, it's good. He writes a lot of good stuff here. I've got most of these 2 pages highlighted. So
I don't have as much on 116. I have a little more on 117.
I have a lot on 117 too.
Mm-hmm.
Go
Me
ahead.
too. Yeah, I think he starts to go into he kind of changed the words and understanding. Faith and trust in the Bible are so closely tied together, they're virtually synonymous. On the other hand, biblical faithfulness speaks of a person's loyalty to a covenant.
I put a star by that. That was good.
Yeah.
I love that. So
I do too.
Start with faithfulness again, because I think you need to repeat.
Yeah, it says, let's see. Faith and trust are so close tied together that they're virtually synonymous. On the other hand, biblical faithfulness speaks of a person's loyalty to a covenant. Faithfulness is far more than only a mindset, hope, or intention. It's an actual performance of the terms of a covenant agreement. Faithfulness is expressed in physical actions. Faithfulness is accomplished through works and deeds. Biblically, this definition applies to both God and man. It's exactly what you were just saying, that, words are nice, but prove it. Show me with your actions. Yeah.
Yeah, and further up, he says, biblically speaking, faith is a term that's, you didn't read that part?
I didn't read that part. Yeah.
Okay. Faith is a term that speaks of a person's trust and confident belief, even without proof.
Yeah.
It speaks of a mindset that usually involves a spiritual condition. So
we've talked about that, how your faith is up and down and up and down. And sometimes I have great faith and sometimes I have little faith. And so what does that mean? Like when you say, oh, I don't have much faith, you don't trust in that? It's like, yeah.
And faithfulness, according to this, is loyalty to a person.
Yeah.
So when we lack faithfulness, we lack loyalty to Yeshua. But Jesus, but that's what we're putting our trust in. So that's why that whole definition thing is good, because what are we trusting in? His faithfulness.
His faithfulness. And
that he will be loyal to us, because
his faith is not going to do this. And his faithfulness, he's never going to not be obedient.
Right.
Not going to act with that obedience.
Yeah. And then he says, biblical faithfulness, what you read, just to repeat, speaks of a person's loyalty to a covenant. So you have faithfulness in general means loyalty to a person, but biblical faithfulness is loyal to a covenant. So when we say that we can lose our salvation, not on Jesus' side we can.
Yeah.
Because he's loyal to the covenant. It's us who mess up the covenant.
Who walks away. Right.
Yeah. It's us who does away with the covenant we have with them.
Right.
So it's really important. These things are, I highlighted, starred things.
Stars, yeah.
Man, this is good stuff. And I think I'm going to have to quote him and make a meme.
I know. I agree, because I think that's a good one. He goes on, it says, so in applying this understanding with our issue with James versus Paul is approaching the gospel more in terms of faith. James is approaching the gospel more in terms of faithfulness.
Yeah.
Paul's approach is about mindset. James's approach is about actions.
Yeah. They're approaching the same subject. They're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
But they're talking about it in different ways.
Yeah.
So then it just says, the last thing I have highlighted on here, as it pertains to the gospel, trust or faith and law can be separated in theory in order that we can discuss each of them. But in reality, they are so tightly interwoven that they operate together as one complex unity. It's the same challenge as we're trying to discuss the Godhead. And so he goes into God is one. God is a God. And so, and it actually means he is God alone. As well. That's one person I've seen describe it that way, but he's one. So and you know that we both love Andrew Gabriel Roth, and he always makes the comment with the Godhead, it's not 3 trees, it's 1 tree, 3 branches. So they're all part of the same tree. Just different branches of it, just like our government. We have 3 branches of government. It's all one government.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Ours just don't work so well together.
Ours just isn't one. Okay.
We should move on.
I know. I like this page. I have a lot highlighted in here. I like this explanation of, I don't think there's this. I mean, I remember being in a seminary class and having a whole huge discussion about deeds and how, and nobody, not one time was anything like this even suggested. Yeah, it's just not taught and thought of. Okay. Yeah. He then goes into Romans 4:11 and 12. Okay. And it says, in fact, he received circumcision as a sign and a seal of the righteousness he's been credited with on the ground of trust. And while he was still uncircumcised, this happened so that he could be the father of every uncircumcised person who trusts, and thus has righteousness accredited to him. At the same time, be the father of every circumcised person who not only had the Brit Milha, but also follows in the footsteps of trust, which Abraham Avinu had when he was still uncircumcised. And I think this is a really good point.
And by the way, it's Abraham, our father, is what she's saying in Hebrew.
Avinu, our
father. His father. And then the ending is like
our. Yeah. Avinu, Abraham, our father. I think that's important because Abraham was a pagan. Abraham was a Gentile. Abraham was not circumcised, nothing. And all that happened. He was righteous before any kind of circumcision, any kind of nation of Israel was created, anything. And why? So that Gentiles could also be included.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Yeah. That is the renewed covenant. We've said this over and over, but just in case somebody new is watching, this Abrahamic covenant is the renewed covenant. Because we're going back to finding favor, not needing to be physically circumcised, but spiritually circumcised.
Right.
Coming out of pagan, coming out of a Gentile country.
Yeah, I know this. I don't want to jump ahead, but he's got a comment down at the bottom. It says, this is an acknowledgement that Abraham is as much the father of Gentiles who have trust in God of Israel through his son Yeshua, and just as the Jews do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's stuff in there we can move on because I think the only thing, unless you have something else really important there, but I think it's stuff we've all said before, but that he ends before he goes into Romans 4:13 and 14. He goes, our rights are entirely spiritual in nature.
Okay, we have everything the same highlighted. I have the same thing. Yeah, exactly the same.
Yeah, just to go back a little bit, he said the difference is that Jews have a God-given right to also see Abraham as their source of citizenship to earthly Israel, while Gentile believers do not have any such national rights. Our rights are entirely spiritual in nature. So we may not have national rights, but we do have the right to be called Israel.
Right.
The people who are in covenant with Yeshua. So that's basically, we're no longer Gentiles.
Abraham is our father too.
Yeah. He is.
All right.
So you want to read Romans 4:13 and
Romans 4:13-14. It says, for the promise of Abraham to his seed is that he would inherit the world. Did not come through legalism, but through the righteousness that trust produces. For if the heirs are produced by legalism, then trust is pointless and the promise is worthless.
Yep. And I kind of skipped down to that second paragraph under that. But so Paul is challenging a fundamental principle of the Second Temple Judaism.
Well, hang on. Because it's logic. This is all logical because the law did not exist in Abraham's time, and it would not exist for another 6 centuries. So that's another thing, that not only was he not Jewish and not Israel created, not only was he not circumcised, there was no law at that time either. So what made him righteous, not necessarily following the law. It was his trust. So
Mhm.
go ahead. Now.
And I think it's interesting because I highlighted in the verse in 13, would inherit the world. And that is the same exact phrase that's used in the Greek in the Beatitudes, inherit the land or inherit the world.
Yeah.
It's the same exact words that you would use. Obviously not the same language, but if you put it back, the Beatitudes talk several times about inheriting the world. And we also see Abraham as inheriting the land, but they're both referring to the same thing. So that's a good point that you made here about the law did not exist. So, but somebody said to me once, they said, well, the patriarchs weren't promised anything, but they were promised that they would inherit the world, meaning the new kingdom that's coming. So they did understand that, and because you just have to read Hebrews 11 to find out that they did have promises and that they did know those promises.
Right.
So anyway, you want me to move on to that? So Paul is challenging.
Yeah, go for it. Yes.
Okay, so he's challenging a fundamental principle of Second Temple Judaism. In fact, he's essentially redefining Abraham's covenant in relation to how Judaism defined it in Paul's era. So he's saying that the inheritance promised in the covenant does not come through doing the law, but rather through the righteousness that comes by trust. That's the covenant we're promised to. It doesn't come by the law. It comes by Yeshua and the trust that we put in him.
Right.
So he says, Paul is not saying that maintenance of the divine covenant and the relationship between God and man that it produces is no longer needed. So he's not saying that it's no longer needed, this relationship and this maintenance on the divine covenant. So we do, just like you work on your marriage, you work on relationships, because it's way easier to walk away than to work and make it happen, make it work, I mean, I think you and I mean, we're together on this show every week, but we live in two totally different states, and we probably see each other face to face once a year.
Yeah.
So you kind of keep in touch, and during the week we might, call or talk and keep in touch. So that's working. That's working on a relationship, So just to end, it says, therefore, while believers should do the law, it is not only effectual if doing the law is done on the basis of first having trust in God. Put another way, faith first, faithfulness second.
Right.
I like that last line there.
Yeah, I like that whole thing. When people are saying, we don't have to do the law, we don't have to follow the law. We're under grace. Okay. Then how do you maintain a relationship with God that pleases him? What is the basis? And I anticipate that their answers would be, loving to one another. But I can't think of an answer that someone would give us from the New Testament that's not founded in the law.
Yeah.
So
I know. But I think you really need revelation on me, honestly, because I think of how many things I read, and I see why people read them that way, because I was blinded until the Lord revealed his truth to me. That and I've said this to people. I don't believe everybody is going to have that same revelation that you and I have experienced.
Yeah.
I think that there are some people who don't know their Bibles well enough to even question anything.
Yeah.
You and I are studiers, and I think other people who study.
So my husband asked me, because we have conversations a lot. He's like, "Are you telling me if we don't follow Torah, we're going to go to hell?" That's the question. And I'm like, that's a tough one. I think that following Torah is part of your salvation responsibility.
Responsibility, yeah.
Yeah, but I think you'll just be held accountable for not we are guaranteed blessings, and we're guaranteed positions and responsibilities. And are you at the table, or are you a guest, right? Are you part of the bride, or are you going to be a guest at the party, at the wedding? And I think that because there's so many people that I think have a very zealous faith and trust and love of Yeshua. They love the Lord, but they're not Torah observant. And I'm not discounting. I'm not saying you're going to go to hell because you don't follow Torah.
Yeah, because it's based on our trust in his faithfulness.
Right. And there are people who don't follow Torah that are super faithful in that regards. But I do think it will be a reckoning when we stand before God.
Mm-hmm. And that's why he says here in Matthew 5, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. So we're not talking about a one and done. We're
talking about,
Yeah, we're talking about fill it up, teach or explain. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot. And these are very, very tiny, I'll go into that.
Parts of a letter.
Just parts of a Hebrew letter that will pass from the law until all is accomplished. So that it hasn't all been accomplished yet. And this is the key verse. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least or doesn't do one of the least of these commandments and teach others to do the same will be called least where? In the kingdom of heaven.
That's right.
But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great where? In the kingdom of heaven. So we're talking about the kingdom of heaven for those who keep it and those who don't keep Torah, because it's about you only get there through Yeshua. And that is the truth, the absolute truth.
Okay. Even the Christian church will say that we are not judged on salvation. Our deeds are judged. And I mean, you can talk to a Christian pastor, like what's going to happen when I stand before the throne of judgment, right? Your deeds are judged.
Yeah.
So, and what are the deeds based on? Whether or not you're going to obey or not.
It's based on Torah. It's based on his instructions. That's what Torah means. His teachings, his instructions. Yeah. So,
and how did you handle it? I mean, there are people that will fight with you about whether or not you have to follow Torah. And that verse right there should be a little shocking to some people. Yeah. It should be a little, like that should cause a pause. Like,
I know, but I mean, I remember I just kind of read through that and I thought commandments. Yeah, I keep the commandments. So it really takes revelation. And if you're interested, ask God.
Yeah.
To give you revelation of what his word means. Like I've said this on this program, and I've told Lauren this. I said, I always prayed, Lord, correct me where I'm reading something incorrectly or believing a lie. I want you to correct me.
Yes.
Open my eyes to any lies I believe. And I think that if we all prayed that way, he would do it. But most of us don't want.
No, we don't think about that. We think we're right, and we want to be right. We want to be right.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one.
Yeah. It is tough. It is hard because, some of it's ego, some of it's our own pride, because, there are certainly people in my life who would never admit I was wrong about that I was right about
about anything. Yeah.
And if they had to admit I was right and they were wrong, that's kind of humiliating to them. So there's that.
Yeah.
But it's all about humbling ourselves, and that's in the Beatitudes.
Yeah.
So so Romans, do you want to move on? Romans 4:15, because we don't have too much to do, but we're not going to get done with it either. So.
Yes, we are. We're not coming. If we don't finish, we're going to go on with 5.
Well, we can just pick up a few pages, but let's move.
Okay. For what law brings is punishment, but where there is no law, there is no violation. And he goes on to say, verse 15 seems to throw us a major league curveball. And so many Bible scholars feel a little bewildered by this statement, that the statement is even here. And he talks about, has it been added? Was it interpreted wrong? Was it? Okay, so he says in the Hebrew version, it says, for what the law brings is wrath.
That's exactly what I have highlighted.
Right.
So
I have that.
I'm going to explain this.
Yeah. You want to go ahead?
No,
Using
you
the
can.
word, yeah, I'm just going to read it. Using the word wrath is important because what Paul is doing is reminding his readers that other major reasons both Jew and Gentiles have to trust in order is to be given righteousness. And it is that all humans are liable for God's wrath. Everybody.
Yes.
Jew, Gentile, everybody.
And I think this is a good verse if we need to spend a couple minutes on it, because I think this verse is highly misquoted. So
yeah, go for it. Anything else you want to add?
I have highlighted, but since Paul is in this section directly addressing Jews, then he is speaking from their point of view, and that view by nature is a view involving the law. So again, he's not speaking to Gentiles, and who he's speaking to matters. It matters on how we take the verse. So he's speaking to his fellow Jews. It says, Paul says that despite what Judaism thinks, that the law produces righteousness, because that is what they think.
That is.
In fact, what the law produces is not righteousness, but wrath. Right. Because by the law, we learn what sin is. And when we break the law, we sin.
Right.
And because of our highly developed evil inclinations, it is the fate of all mankind to embrace sinning. So again, if you go back to this, what the law brings is punishment or wrath. Why? Because that's who we are.
And it defines sin. Like if we're gonna understand what is gonna give us God's wrath, we have to understand sin. I like what he says in the next one. He kind of paraphrases it a little bit. A lot of people would think, Jews would kind of believe that where there is no law, there is no violation, right? Ignorance is bliss, basically, is kind of that phrase. But he says, we just deliberately shun the law, then we can avoid sinning. In other words, and here's our American justification. We say this: ignorance of the law is no excuse. And we say that all the time to, kids or anybody we're talking to. Just because you don't understand the law, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Like you're still going to be held accountable.
It's like read the Bible.
Right.
And how many of us, if we actually started over and just read the book without anybody telling
we've
us
ever been told.
Yeah. And if you just started and read words like the Sabbath is a covenant, it's a sign of a covenant between us. That's what he says.
Yeah.
Keeping the covenant is a sign. I mean, keeping the Sabbath is a sign of a covenant that we have with our Messiah.
Right.
So, so stuff like that. And it's a covenant forever,
Yep.
Sorry, I interrupted you, but.
Nope, that's okay. No, you're totally right. I think that's it. Paul is saying that ignorance of the law of Moses, not only a good and acceptable way to excuse our sin, he advises that we should strive to know nothing about the law. To me, that's near blasphemy. Like if you take that attitude, like don't even worry about understanding the law. That's blasphemy. And Paul would never say that.
Right. And he says, and he's talking kind of thrown in there like our responsibility, because he says, how much more responsible are people who have God's laws and command or Torah, but violate them?
Right.
So we have them in our Bibles and we violate them. Than people who do not know his laws. And he's not talking about people who have Bibles, okay? He's talking about people who don't have Bibles.
Don't know anything about them.
Don't know anything. And it says, but they do have the natural law and violate it. So the natural law is, I can look outside, I can see, I didn't create all this. There must have been somebody who created it. So that's the natural law. I want to search for the person, the being that created everything I see. And that goes back to chapter 1 of Romans. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. What do you think? We have about 4, 5, 6, 7. We have about 4 minutes, 5 minutes or so. Do we want to try 16, 17?
Let's try it. And then I only have, just a couple things, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Romans 4, 16, 17. The reason the promise is based on trusting is that many come as God's free gift, a promise that can be relied on by all the seed, not only those who live within the framework of Torah, but also with the kind of trust Abraham had. Abraham Avinu for all of us. This accords with the Tanakh, where it says, I have appointed you to be father of many nations. Abraham is our father in God's sight because he trusted God as the one who gives life to the dead and calls non-existent things into creation.
Mm-hmm.
So,
if you want to read the next paragraph, I'll read the one that I have something highlighted at the very bottom of 121.
Okay. And, he's just saying in verse 16, Paul is finally summing up, finally kind of getting to what everything that he has said thus far. Mm-hmm. And it ends with Paul making a statement that would have enraged most Jews. Mm-hmm. It's that Paul's explanation of Abraham receiving his righteousness by trust alone is why God made the promise to him that he would be father of all nations. Therefore, Abraham is the father of all of us, meaning all believers, Jews and Gentiles. To a Jew hearing this, Paul just gave away their most revered Jewish patriarch, Abraham, to their enemies, the Gentiles.
Right.
However, what Paul really did was to redefine that the seed of Abraham consists of what the seed consists of. So, I think that's great.
And then lastly, I'll end with this. Paul makes it clear that Gentiles become a seed of Abraham because of our trust in God. Mm-hmm. Through our trust in God's son, Yeshua. And this involves no conversion whatsoever. But the same is true for the Jews who believe in Yeshua. No conversion or renouncing of their Jewishness is required.
Right.
They do not have to become Christians.
Right.
They just have to believe in the Messiah and they keep their Jewishness just as Paul did. Mm-hmm. And so all that's required is trusting. And I think we could probably end there, but and then we'll pick up some more and go and finish just there's just like one more page. Yeah. And then we'll finish the last few verses and jump into 5 minutes.
Yeah. We have Romans 4:18 through 25-ish.
Yeah, so just a few verses. But these are important verses, and I think it's important for us to go slowly.
Yeah. All right. So last few verses, chapter 5. If you want to read about half the chapter, that's about what we're running. And we will see you guys next week.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah. Have a great Thanksgiving if you do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good evening. If you missed today's show and want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv, where you will find this show and all of the other live Lamb show archives on the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lambnetwork.tv website. I'm Stephanie Pavlantos, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.